Hi, it's Wendy again from Worldwide Speak. This video is going to show you how to write a narrative paragraph. It's going to give you clear instructions about all the pieces that you need in order to write a successful, strong narrative paragraph. And remember, this video is specifically designed for the English language learner. Let's get started. What is the purpose of a narrative paragraph? Well, its purpose is to tell a story from your life so well that the reader feels like they were there with you at the time of the event. There are three important parts that you need to remember about the narrative paragraph when you're writing. First, you need to start the paragraph with a clear topic sentence. And then you need to have strong supporting sentences that tell your story in a logical and clear way. And last, you need a concluding sentence that just restates the topic sentence and gives the reader the reason why you wrote the story. Now, I'd like to take the time to make a special note about the narrative paragraph. It's really important that you pick just one moment in time, and then you expand on that moment. You don't want to give a long history of the event because that would be a little boring for the reader. You want to pick just one specific moment in time from that event and expand with the details on that. Okay, first I'd like to talk about the structure of the paragraph. We start with the topic sentence, and the topic sentence gives the reader some background information. It introduces the main character of the story, which is you, and then it gives some idea of what will happen in the story. It makes the reader want to read more. Then we have the supporting sentences. And these sentences are the ones that tell the story by explaining the sequence of events. Also, they give sensory detail like sight or hearing or taste, as well as how the writer, which is you, felt during the event. And last, we have the concluding sentence. This sentence finishes the story. It often shares what was important about the experience or what the writer learned from the experience. Let's talk about the first part of your paragraph, the topic sentence. This is the first sentence of your paragraph. This gives the reader some background information. It introduces the main character of the story, which is you, and then it gives some idea of what will happen in the story. It draws the reader in to make them want to read about your story. This is how you need to write your topic sentence. Here is an example. One of the best lessons I ever learned about friendship actually happened later in life. Let's take a closer look now to see why this is a good topic sentence. First, I tell you the main controlling idea for the paragraph. It's the best lesson about friendship. I put that there so that you keep reading to learn what was that lesson that I learned. And then I put myself in the sentence, I ever learned, to tell you who's writing. And last, I tell you kind of when this occurred so I can give this paragraph more focus. And I say later in life, so you know it wasn't a story from my childhood. And you're going to read on and discover which part of my life, which later part in my life, where the story took place. So we've talked about the topic sentence and what you need in order to have a clear and effective topic sentence. Now I'd like to focus on your supporting sentences by giving you some grammar tips when you write them. Number 1, watch your verb tense. Typically, when we write a narrative paragraph, we use the past tense. We can use the simple past and the past progressive. We use the past tense because the event happened in the past. For example, let's take a look at this sentence. One of the best lessons I ever learned about friendship actually happened later in life. I bet you recognize that sentence. It's our topic sentence. And the verbs that I used in the topic sentence are in the past tense: learned and happened. These signal to the reader, hey, this story happened in the past. Now I'm going to read a story, and it's not going to be difficult because all of my verbs are going to be in the past tense, which makes it very easy for the reader to follow. If you go back and forth with present and past, it makes the reading much more difficult for the reader because the reader becomes confused when you have to jump back and forth between verb tenses. So be very careful to keep your verbs in the past if you're telling a story in the past. Let's review the past tense a little bit. So the simple past is used to show that something already happened. For example, she called me one morning to chat. The simple past tense is also used to express how we felt about something or someone. For this, we use the verb to be in the past. For example, I was shocked at what I saw. And I don't know if you remember, but in one of the previous slides when I talked about supporting sentences, I explained that in a narrative paragraph, we want to show the reader what our emotions were during this event so that we can connect with the reader on a deeper level. It makes your paragraph stronger. And also remember the verb to be in the past tense, it's irregular. I was, he, she, it was. And then for you, we, and they, we use were. Now, the past progressive tense is used to show that something was going on at some point in the past. For example, Kim was standing in the doorway when I walked upstairs. I don't know when Kim got there, but it was going on at the time when I walked upstairs. Now, you can watch more about the past tense in our YouTube video, 12 Verb Tenses. It goes into much more detail about the past tense and how you use it and how you form it. And you can just watch the part on the past tense if that's where you need to focus. Now, grammar tip number 2. Use a variety of sentence types. This is really important for your paragraph. Do you remember the 3 sentence types? We have simple sentences, we have compound sentences, and we have complex sentences. The simple sentence just has a subject and a verb. It's very simple. Mark ran a race yesterday. Mark is your subject, ran is your verb. Now, when we have the compound sentence, we have 2 independent clauses or 2 simple sentences that can stand by themselves. When we put them together with a comma and a conjunction, it becomes this longer compound sentence. If we took away the comma and the conjunction and put a period there, then you could have 2 simple sentences. And last, the complex sentence is complex because it uses a special word called a subordinator. Martha was hungry because she forgot to eat lunch. These special words, these subordinators, make our sentences complex. Now, if I took out the subordinator, like I took out the comma and the conjunction for the compound sentence, if I took the subordinator out, I would not have two sentences because the first part of our sentence, Martha was hungry, I could put a period there and that's a nice, simple sentence. But if I have a sentence, because she forgot to eat lunch, it doesn't make any sense. I'm still waiting for more information. That subordinator, that special word, makes the sentence complex, and then the second part of the sentence cannot stand alone. If you would like a complete in-depth study of these three sentence types, we have a wonderful video on YouTube on the three kinds of sentences, how to improve your writing. I strongly suggest you watch that so that your sentences, which are the foundation of your writing, are strong, which therefore makes your writing clear and effective and successful. Last, my third grammar tip for your narrative paragraph. Sequence words. These are words that we use to show the order of events of a story. Often in a narrative paragraph, we're telling how something happened. And the following words are examples of words that we use to show chronological or time events that occur in order. There's after that, eventually, then, next, afterwards, soon, later, and finally. Here is an example of a sentence that uses one of these sequence words. I quickly hung up the phone and then I called an emergency plumbing company. Now, we also want to use words that show simultaneous events, two things happening at the same time. Some words that we can use to show this are at the same time that, while, and meanwhile. Here's an example of a sentence that uses one of these special words that show simultaneous events. While I was on the phone with her, I heard a strange noise in the basement. So I'm on the telephone, and while I'm speaking on the telephone, there's a loud noise coming from my basement. Two events happening at the same time. So, what does this look like when you go to write your narrative paragraph for school? Well, you remember our topic sentence. One of the best lessons I ever learned about friendship actually happened later in life. And then let me give you an example of how I would start out my supporting sentences. Since I mentioned later in life, I'm probably going to continue and tell you which part of my life the event took place in. I was in my 30s and I had 4 young children at home. Luckily, my best friend Kim and her family lived down the street from me. I've told you what part of my life this occurred, and then I've introduced a new character. So, now you are interested in learning, why have I introduced Kim in the story? What part is she going to play? And then the concluding sentence is going to restate the topic sentence, and then it's going to explain to you the lesson I learned. Knowing when and how to help without being asked was one of the most valuable things I learned about being a true and thoughtful friend. Why don't we take a look at what the entire paragraph would look like as you would write it in real life? Let's read this together. One of the best lessons I ever learned about friendship actually happened later in life. I was in my 30s and I had 4 young children at home. Luckily, my best friend Kim and her family lived down the street from me. She called me early one morning to chat. While I was on the phone with her, I heard a strange noise in the basement. Immediately, I went downstairs to investigate. I was shocked at what I saw. A pipe burst and dirty water was everywhere. I quickly hung up the phone and then I called an emergency plumbing company. All I could think about were the piles of clean laundry that I would have to rewash. 4 small children, a flooded basement, and now more work to do overwhelmed me. Soon I started crying. When I walked upstairs, Kim was standing in the doorway. She held a large bottle of laundry detergent in each hand. It was exactly what I needed at that moment. I had a friend to comfort me, and I had laundry detergent for the numerous loads in the basement. It was like she read my mind. Knowing when and how to help without being asked was one of the most valuable things I learned from her about being a true and thoughtful friend. Let's take a look at this narrative paragraph in relation to grammar tip number 1. Do you remember what that was? We talked about verb tense, specifically keeping our verbs in the past. I've taken the time to highlight all of the verbs in this paragraph. First of all, look how many there are. It's a very active paragraph. Second, if you take a look at each and every verb that's highlighted, those verbs are in the past tense. That's what makes it really easy for the reader because they can follow along and their brain doesn't have to get confused by jumping back and forth between present and past. Now let's look at the paragraph in relation to grammar tip number 2. Those were the sentences: simple, compound, and complex. And I told you that you need a variety of sentence types in order to make your paragraph flow. If your paragraph were all simple sentences, it would sound more like a grocery list than a story. It would be rather boring for the reader. If you look at the paragraph, I have color-coded it with the sentence types. If you look at the green sentences, those are simple sentences. The pink sentences are compound sentences, and the yellow sentences are complex sentences. And you notice when you take a look at this entire paragraph, it has all the colors sprinkled throughout the paragraph. And so you have a nice variety of simple, compound, and complex sentences, which makes it very easy for the reader to read. It makes the paragraph flow smoothly. And last, do you remember grammar tip number 3? That talked about words that show sequence of events and also simultaneous actions, those special words that I had talked about in the previous slides. I used a few of these in my paragraph to signal to the reader that something was happening next or that something was happening at the same time. Finally, let's talk about this concluding sentence. It's your last sentence of the paragraph. It restates the topic sentence and then wraps up the paragraph. Also, like in my example, it may tell the reader what you learned or what was important about the experience. Our topic sentence was, one of the best lessons I ever learned about friendship actually happened later in life. And our conclusion sentence was, knowing when and how to help without being asked was one of the most valuable things I learned about being a true and thoughtful friend. So what I did here was, one of the best lessons, I just changed the wording a little bit and I said, one of the most valuable things. Same idea, same meaning. And then for friendship, I changed that around a little bit to say, true and thoughtful friend. And of course, I tell you what I learned in the beginning of the sentence. That was knowing when and how to help without being asked. All right, let's review. You need a clear topic sentence. You need supporting sentences that stay in the past tense, that have a variety of sentences, and in those sentences you use words to show chronological order or simultaneous action. And then you have a concluding sentence that wraps up the paragraph and shows the reader what you learned or what was important about the event. You can do this. You can write a clear and effective narrative paragraph. You can tell your story with lots of details that connect on an emotional level with your reader by telling the reader how you feel. You can include words that show sequence of events. You can show that two things happen at the same time. You can use a variety of sentences, and you're going to keep your verbs in the past tense. Your paragraph is going to be strong and successful. And please remember, for more English tips, you can always visit our website at worldwidespeak.com. We have tons of resources there, including one-on-one coaching for English language learners. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.